Looking for a guaranteed way to create content that resonates with your audience? Start a podcast, interview your ideal clients, and let them choose the topic of the interview. Because if your ideal clients care about the topic, there's a good chance the rest of your audience will care about it too. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. Today we are joined by Harry Kargman. Harry is the founder and CEO at Kargo. Harry, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
So it's a pleasure to connect. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. And today we're actually going to be talking about this idea, how to build a company with no outside funding. And I think this is going to be a particularly important episode. I think there are a lot of times in which people over-celebrate getting a new round of funding. That's kind of like a benchmark, a milestone. And maybe that's not what we should be celebrating. So we're going to get into it. I'm going to obviously let you talk more about it. But before we do get into today's topic, Harry, maybe you can tell us a little about what you and the Kargo team are up to these days.
Sure. So I'm Harry Kargman. I'm the founder and CEO of Kargo. This is actually our 15th year in existence. I founded the company in 2003. Kargo is focused on mobile advertising experiences, specifically on the mobile web. We partner with most of the large media companies and publishers, companies like NBC and Hearst and Viacom and Scripps, and some of the smaller web companies. And we deliver high-end mobile brand experiences for major brands like Procter & Gamble and Unilever and Target and AT&T and T-Mobile. And the goal is to make that mobile screen truly a brand opportunity for major brands to connect with consumers as they consume content on the mobile web. And so we've been at this now for 15 years, and the idea is to really be the leaders in taking what happens typically in Times Square or during the Super Bowl or in print pages, but bringing those great brand experiences and advertising experiences to the mobile web in a way that really reflects a good consumer experience and actually changes consumers' minds to think about products and services they wouldn't necessarily think about.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, in 15 years strong, obviously you and your team are doing something right. So that's wonderful. Congratulations on that level of success. And, and Harry, today we are going to be talking about, I mean, you are the founder, you're the CEO, you've built this, you've built Kargo up. And I think that makes you certainly uniquely situated to talk about today's topic, how to build a company with no outside funding. Harry, I know we were going to kind of jump off with this idea about, what it means basically anytime you raise money.
Yeah, so today, Kargo has about 200 employees. We announced that we passed the 100 million in revenue mark a few years ago, and the company continues to grow. But it's taken me effectively 15 years to get it to the size that we are at today. And I would say that the first 8 years didn't go that well. It was relatively flat. We hadn't quite figured out the business model that would kick in. And we had to continually pivot the company and evolve the company, both our business model as well as our products and services, to actually figure out a model that would align with the market. And I think that's lost on many people. I think they believe that they want to be an entrepreneur, that they have a great idea, that they put a business plan in place, and that they could go out and get funding for that business plan. And whether that business plan is actually a marketable business plan, meaning that there are real clients and customers for it or not, is almost less important. Most fellow entrepreneurs believe that they should come up with a great idea, get it into a document of some type, and then run around to investors, and that success is really marked by the point where investors are willing to bite at the idea behind the piece of paper and where they get funding. And then I think they feel legitimate because somebody's willing to give them either a few $1 million or tens of millions of dollars or even hundreds of millions of dollars to back that particular idea. Yeah. But the fundamental problem with that is that it really isn't proven. And where people need to sort of think a little bit more deeply about what they're doing is, proving out that the actual idea and the execution can truly produce revenue and a customer base of either companies or individuals that are interested in actually buying those products. And I think that's missing. I think that is the most important part of the business, but it seems like today we celebrate the entrepreneur that's willing or able to raise funding and not the entrepreneur that necessarily built a profitable, self-sustaining growth business, because those are actually much fewer and farther between and potentially a lot less sexy. And that's the thing that I think is lost on people, is that most of the things that are actually truly big companies, sustainable companies, and have huge amounts of value are typically companies that are not necessarily creating sexy products that maybe have low margin or no margin or even are underwater, and where without sort of investor funding, there's no real business sustainability or business model, or the size of the team is just too big to actually sustain the kinds of revenues that the market seems to believe the product is really worth.
Yeah. I think you're right on the money in that, you hear all of these celebratory stories of, we just raised this round of funding, we just, this, that, and the other. And, not only are, like, as you're saying, like, not only is it not a proven successful business model, but, you're also selling off huge chunks of your company for this money that may be just kind of going down the drain. So certainly getting that round of funding is no guarantee of success, but instead you have your sort of takeaway, your strategy then is, we talked a little bit, is to keep it small and profitable.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously not so small today with 200 folks, but I think the strategy that is critical is figuring out what number of people will fit within the revenue opportunity and the profitability opportunity that you're able to generate. So you can build potentially a business that has a lot of revenue, also hire a lot of people, but the business model and the margins are so small that ultimately, at the end of the day, your cost structure is north of the profitability or even the cost basis that you actually operate the company. And sooner or later, it's like musical chairs. The music's going to stop. There's no question that if you don't have a profit, not only a revenue generating organization, but a profit generating organization in some number of years, call it 3 to 5 years, you're going to be out of luck, because the chance of you continue to raise funding, unless you actually get to a scale where you can take it public and you have a certain perception in the market like Amazon does, where sooner or later you can sort of turn a massive profit just by sort of reducing R&D investment, which again is very, very rare. If you're not able to get to that next round of funding, ultimately what's going to happen is you're going to have massive layoffs, or you shutter your doors because the ability for you to keep it going sort of suddenly comes to an end. And that really happened to me. I mean, my story started really in 1999 when I started Kargo 1.0. I raised a bunch of money. I hired about 40, engineers and product people, not a lot of business people. And I thought that the business model was to actually build great technology. And once that technology was proven, that the revenue would come and that I would also be able to go and raise more money. And I learned firsthand in 2001 that with the burst of the dot-com bubble, that effectively, there is no guarantee that you'll be able to raise that next round. And I went through a personal experience of having to lay off all but effectively 2 people.
Wow.
And so that lesson learned is, once you're completely dependent on a few outside investors and you're on a timeline where if you don't get it done after, on a very short window of time, that you're basically belly up, what you learn is that self-sustaining businesses and being able to have self-reliance to operate and manage the company based upon real customers and a diversification of customers, that is sort of the big win. That is the driver of true success in the market. And people that are either unwilling, unable, or not successful at building those revenue-producing, profit-producing organizations that are right-sized for the market opportunity, ultimately those organizations will go out of business or have to sell in a fire sale or have to merge with a third party because those companies cannot survive long term.
Yeah, absolutely. So from what I'm hearing, this idea of keep it small and profitable until the revenue kicks in, and also that the funds should not be used to just keep a company afloat. And I know one of the last things that we were going to be talking about is certainly like, if things do start to flatten out, what's the strategy there?
So again, one of the big resources that companies have or don't have is time. I would say that's the one critical lesson that I've learned, which I think the business marketplace doesn't talk about enough, which is everything is based upon time. If you have an expense structure and a team that becomes effectively upside down from a profitability perspective, it's only a matter of time before you go under. If you have a organization that is built upon investment funds, and there is basically a countdown clock to when those investment funds basically have been all used, and you run out of those funds. And so the critical thing that I think entrepreneurs need to think about is, given the amount of revenue that they have, and given sort of the trajectory of the company, and given maybe their last raise, how much time do they have before they have to take some level of action or they find themselves in an upside down situation? Mm-hmm. And so from my perspective, looking at time as a critical element of operating a business, how much time do you have to take action? How much time do you have to turn the company around? How much time do you have before you've blown through all your funding and you're out in the marketplace, and then you know that either you have to do that raise within some critical period of time or not, and you basically go belly up without it. Having that always in the back of your mind, and having that, every day that you go by thinking about that, is the thing that I think all great entrepreneurs should think about until they have really a growth business that has growing profitability and EBITDA. And so going back to your question about whether a company flattens out or not, if the cost structure of the company continues to grow or is at an unsustainable amount, the entrepreneur needs to think about what changes do they need to make in the business to give themselves enough time to turn it around. I would rather basically take more aggressive action, cutting costs and reducing the cost structure of the organization to allow for more time than basically taking the other route, which is to hope and pray that the company's going to turn around and keep the existing cost structure, which in itself is unsustainable, and then put you in a much more aggressive situation later on if you're not able to turn it around in the time that you've allocated to go and do that. And so being really conservative about how much time you have, because things always take longer than I think any business plan lays out. Oh, yeah. That's the thing that I think people don't necessarily factor into their plans. Mm-hmm. And patience, right? Persistence and patience. So if they have a plan and it's supposed to get to a certain size by a certain date and it doesn't happen, Do they have the wherewithal to have more patience and persistence? And do they have a sort of low, a conservative, medium, and high prospect in how much time it will take to hit certain business objectives?
We can't name names, but today's growth story is about $1 billion tech security firm. Even though this is an incredibly successful company, they've struggled with cross-selling among their top global clients through an underperforming inside sales team. So how did they solve for this? They implemented a multi-tactic program that included display, email, direct mail, global inside sales, and an enablement team. This program guaranteed pipeline conversions and resulted in a 257% increase in MQL to SQL conversion and an almost 200% increase in closed business. So how did this security firm get these kind of jaw-dropping results? The answer is simple. MRP Prolitics. MRP Prolitics is an insights-powered account-based marketing platform with streaming predictive analytics baked into its core. Integrating multi-channel ABM execution on these insights, MRP Prolitics triggers display, email, direct mail, and global inside sales in real time, helping the largest marketing departments in the world deliver the right message to their customers at just the right time. So can MRP Prolitics get similar results for you? Probably. Find out by visiting mrpfd.com or click the link in the episode description of this interview. All right, let's get back to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Persistence and patience, which I think can be sometimes in short supply as we have sort of turned into this instant gratification kind of society.
Yeah, everybody is going to get rich quick. I'm going to start the company within 3 years. I'll have this baby, churning out, profits or cash, or be sexy because it's a blockchain company or it's an AI company, and somebody's going to swoop in because I've assembled a team and buy me at 100 times expected revenues 5 years from now. Good luck. That rarely. I mean, there are examples of that sometimes happening.
Right.
Usually, more often than not, it's due to relationships between the founders or the investors and the acquiring company, and not necessarily due to other factors that are more sort of objective. So it's something to really think about. Every entrepreneur that I know that has sold their company for huge amounts of money, almost without dropping a beat, tell me how lucky they are to actually have gotten that transaction through. I just talked to my buddy who started Ring.com that sold it to Amazon for, I think, north of $1 billion. And his first comment to me was, the whole thing could have gone south at any moment, and I can't believe that the actual transaction was completed. And there were times even then where he was worried about the actual transaction completing. So what you realize is that there is no guarantee of an exit or a successful exit, and so you better build a self-sustaining company that can sort of last through the long winter days and nights to get to the other side of potentially on the other side or taking it public.
Absolutely. Yep. I love that. And I also love this sort of picture of this looming specter of time that you've sort of painted, sort of hovering behind every entrepreneur, which I think is fantastic. So Harry, this has been some tremendous content talking about, again, how to build a company with no outside funding. And your continued growth and success at Kargo is definitely inspiring. Harry, this is a question that we have been asking a lot of the founders and CEOs, these leaders that we've been getting to feature on the show lately. It's this idea of legacy. And we find that a lot of the guests that we have on the show these days, they have a clear vision for what they're trying to accomplish, what they're trying to build, the kind of person that they want to be. So, Harry, maybe you could share with us a little bit about what kind of legacy you might be hoping to leave behind at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. My objective in life is to build a great organization that helps other individuals and companies do better. And in our particular case, even though advertising is not necessarily the sexiest area, and certainly I think the public in general would rather go without it, we really do see ourselves as having a mission to help publishers monetize, because we think great content deserves a business model that will allow editors and writers and creators to continue to do what they do well. And it's also the ability for us to enable brands who I think are facing the challenges of an ever more fragmented world, deliver their messages. So with regard to what I built, the goal for me is to actually help both companies and our partners do what they do better. And that same philosophy, I think, translates to my personal life. You're only here once, and there's a question of like, what value do you leave in this world and create in this world? It's one of my hopes and one of my goals to actually start a preparatory academy for basically socioeconomic depressed kids that really don't start out with a lot of opportunity early on. And whether you can sort of take these kids that are promising and give them a manufactured, re-engineered start, and do so in a way that effectively plucks them out of what would be a cycle of poverty and really sort of an impossible task of pulling themselves up, and give them a boost. But to do so requires a huge amount of capital. And so part of my goal in building my company is not only to help our customers do what they're trying to do better and create a great culture and a great opportunity for the employees that work with us, but my goal also is to hopefully generate enough resources that I can actually leave something more lasting in the world beyond just my corporate success, that will actually benefit generations beyond me and make a difference in the world that far outlasts my lifetime. So those are my goals. I haven't quite accomplished them all, so it keeps me driven. But I'm hoping that with a little luck, because I think luck is absolutely a critical factor in all of this, and a lot of hard work, and hopefully some time, I'll be able to reach those goals.
That's fantastic. Well, it certainly sounds like Harry, you're on your way, and luck certainly favors the prepared. So you're setting yourself up. We wish you absolutely continued success at Kargo. Speaking of which, if any of our listeners are interested in connecting with you after today's episode, they want to find out more about today's topic, they want to find out more about Kargo, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, we publish a lot of research around mobile advertising and all the factors around how to actually successfully mount a mobile campaign, a brand campaign, upper funnel and mid funnel, and drive brand recognition. So to find out more about that, you can go to our website, www.kargo.com. And also to reach me, there's two good ways to do that. You can DM me on Twitter, and that's just Harry Kargman. And I'm also on LinkedIn, Harry Kargman, HarryKargman. I'm on LinkedIn often, and I reply to most of my messages. So looking forward to connecting that way as well.
That's fantastic. Harry, thank you again so much for your time and your expertise today. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Digital marketing agencies have a tough job. You have to stay on top of the latest marketing strategies for your clients and your agency. What if there was a way you could address both at the same time? Imagine your agency putting out content with greater quality and quantity. Envision bringing your clients a turnkey solution for one of B2B marketing's fastest growing media strategies, podcasting. All those clients asking for your help with their account-based marketing efforts? Picture being the first to bring them the idea of content-based networking, showing them the proven strategy for breaking into their most coveted accounts. Here's the concept. Sweetfish Media is looking to work with a limited number of innovative agencies interested in a new partnership model. We produce a podcast for your agency at no cost. You introduce the power of podcasting and Sweetfish services to your clients. Everybody wins. Learn more at sweetfishpartners.com.